What's up? Welcome to Tales Tomorrow. I'm Morrow, your storyteller for today, and with me I have some more RPG horror stories. I'm gonna start experimenting with making some nonsensical intros. I feel like we're kind of reaching that point where it's okay to mess around and joke around, be a little more silly, zany, a little more zesty, I guess you could say. What is zesty? I have no idea what zesty is. It just sounds fun to say, and I feel like it's a little more zany. But what is zany? If you have any answers for any of that, let me know in the comments below. I'm gonna get some RPG horror stories for today. 3-session banter on SA. A short story for the Warhammer 2e campaign I've joined recently, as I wanted to once again try to learn the basics of the system. The DM was someone I played previously. He was okay guy aside from issues with time for sessions. He was the one that personally invited me into the game. As the player mentioned, SA warning. The situation happened while we were waiting for the second session to start. We chat as players about our plans for the next sessions. Important note is we play as raiders from Norska, Viking-inspired barbaric tribes. Suddenly the subject of struggle snuggle comes up in relation to our raiding. That's when a player says, and I quote, SA is not a bad thing. Huh? SA? Like the R word, SA is not a bad thing? In which context, pray tell me? I am silent, expecting DM to react with some boundary settings. Nope. The other female player tries to gently steer the conversation, saying not so much. DM then chimes in with, well, you know, like in a democracy, it doesn't have to be such a bad thing if 3 and 4 people are happy with the gangbang. Huh? What the fuck is your DM on about? I told DM after the session that I don't think this game is for me and left. Luckily, I'm not playing anything else with those folks. Good, yeah. DM is literally making a stupid fucking take saying, well, in a gangbang, if 3 out of 4 people really like it, but the 1 person doesn't like it, it's not a bad thing. Huh? If the 3 out of 4 people are okay with doing it, leave the 4th one alone. Don't let him be part of it then. If somebody doesn't want something to happen to them, don't force them into that. Especially when it comes to any sort of like sexually violent things. Don't treat SA as like a good thing. Sexual assault is not a good thing of any kind. Let's get to the next story for today just to kind of brain cleanse a bit. Ugh. Am I in the wrong for permanently killing off one of my players' characters? I've been DMing a group of 5 for over 2.5 years, and I recently killed off the party's warlock by turning it into a deathlock. That was caused by the character whose patron was an archdevil repeatedly acting against his patron. I gave him many warnings, but the final straw was when the warlock killed his patron's favorite son, a pit fiend. Yep, you know what? I have no problem with that. Yeah, that was perfectly valid. If you have a warlock and your patron is an archdevil and you decide to go against archdevil's wishes, basically betraying your patron and killing their favorite son, a pit fiend, yeah, I think at that point, then yeah, that justifies the punishment. Maybe there was a different way, an alternate way, or maybe they were forcing the railroad into a situation where the pit fiend had to die. Or maybe there's some way to circumvent around it. But if the player chose to do that, right? If the player actively chose, like, you know what, sugar daddy, sugar mommy, whatever they are, I'm gonna betray you, screw you over, and kill your favorite son just because I want to. Then yeah, if that's the case, then yeah, it seems valid. Unless they were like railroaded into such a situation. I immediately asked him to make a new character and describe the gross transformation his character underwent to turn into a deathlock. He immediately started screaming at me about it being unfair that his character died so easily, despite my repeated warnings. He said that unless I brought his character back, he would leave the table. So now I'm conflicted. Was I in the wrong for killing his character, and should I revive it or just let him leave? It all depends on the context for this. If they were railroaded into this decision, right, where they had to go against the archdevil's wishes and had to kill a pit fiend for part of a quest and main story, then yes, that'd be messed up. If they willingly chose to go against the archdevil and they didn't have to kill a pit fiend but they killed it anyway, and the player chose to do it and fully supported it, especially after giving so many warnings about their actions having consequences, all the thing I can say is, frick around, find out. But you know, this the uncensored version because I'm on YouTube here, I gotta censor myself. Edit. Forgot to mention that this character had made every character he'd ever played a murder hobo, and the warlock was no different. From his current campaign, I wanted to limit this behavior as much as possible, as it made the game not fun to DM and ruined the experience of other players. I had a conversation with this player during session 0 about not murder hoboing, and he agreed to try to limit it, but went back on this almost immediately. Edit 2. After discussing it with the rest of the party, I've decided to ban the player from my table, and I've cut contact with him. I don't feel like somebody who doesn't appreciate the time and effort of put into DMing and helping facilitate a cohesive and satisfying story deserves a spot at my table. I mean, if the player just murder hobos every NPC that it finds and just murders things for the sake of murdering things without any rhyme or reason to it, sure, yeah, kick him out. There's nothing wrong with that. At this point, I feel like having the player not be there and saving a spot for somebody else that actually will care for what you're building with the story instead of just, I Eldritch Blast every NPC that I see just because I want to, because I want to do what I want to do, not listen to DM's stinky story. Like, yeah, no, that's not okay. That's not cool. I probably shouldn't be doing that sort of thing, and you shouldn't tolerate it either. Player, unsatisfied with ending to a campaign, decides to nuke friendship over it. Hello Reddit, first time posting on this site. Just want to tell my story because of a play that left scars on my psyche that it kind of shifted my desire to play D&D specifically for a while. Characters of import, me, GM/DM, Salisbury, former player 1, Eridice, problem player 2. This takes place over my personal Discord playing D&D 5e group that had 2 campaigns going on. One campaign fizzled out due to players getting busy with life, then we had a second game that started as a one-shot but evolved into a full campaign. We've been playing for 1 year plus now, but we decided to take in new players. My ex-girlfriend invited a friend she had from work, which was Salisbury. Salisbury played a wild magic kobold. The character was... Okay, once again with the story, like please guys, just full stops, not just commas the whole way. Full stops would be fantastic, good lord. Salisbury played a wild magic kobold. The character was played to be a babyish for the majority of the game, but the character matured up and evolved over the game, eventually becoming one of the key players in the story. Around year 2 and a few story arcs down, a friend already known from Facebook decided to chat up the group, seeking refuge from the old D&D group, claiming the previous group had treated them poorly with targeting her character and fudging the enemies just to target her. This player was Eridice. They played a Goliath barbarian. The character was a cookie-cutter barbarian with a backstory of basic tribe exile. We played for months and years, and the players were tasked to get their unique magic weapons, but to fully awaken the weapons, the characters needed to become paragons of the character's virtues. Told the player to please tell me in private how the character would react and what their virtues are, so that I could craft story beats and scenes that relate to them, exemplifying their virtue. Most players obliged except for Eridice, who didn't give me anything to work with and never communicated properly what her character wanted and their beliefs. So the story went on and we reached the climax. I admit I'm not the best GM with running a story and have a lot of pitfalls. All the characters awakened their weapons, some in a more grandiose style, and some didn't. But Eridice, the awakening was sudden cause they literally didn't give me anything to work with other than the theme of self-sacrifice. So I shouldn't hurt her character to have a "with great power comes great responsibility" thing. I would later learn apparently this was the start of their resentment towards me. If you don't give anything for a DM to work with, you can't really blame the DM for that. You gotta blame yourself for that. If your DM asks you to give them a backstory or a theme or a virtue or anything, they want to incorporate that into the storytelling, give you a special personal character moment. It's there for a reason. They want to make you feel special. But if you don't communicate anything to them, then I got nothing to work with. So they're gonna shoehorn something, they don't know what's going on, they don't know how it's gonna roll out, but you give them nothing to work with. I feel like it's a communication issue. And yeah, obviously the DM should have communicated further and maybe asked them ahead of time if that would be okay and cool and all. But the player should have communicated something. And now Eridice is going to be resenting the DM because, well, really because of her own fault, really. The story went on and the players took down my BBG, an ancient white Dracolich with a mix of magical MacGuffin and some genuinely good combat. I wanted the game to end was simply that they made it back to where it all began, I grab a pint and fade away. But the players pressured me to do epilogues for them. I did epilogues to the best of my knowledge of the player characters. For Eridice and Salisbury originally wanted their characters to die, but I later learned that they were pressured by Eridice to change it that the character reincarnates. But as a child, Eridice claims the character would take care of the reincarnated Salisbury, so I ran with it, not giving much detail, cause again, I was not talked to about the character. Left a bad taste in my mouth, so after we closed off for the night, I tried to tell the players I rushed the ending, wanting them to figure out their own epilogues, cause I could not do the character justice. What the hell? What is Eridice talking about? Why is Eridice not communicating with the DM? Why is she telling Salisbury to make the character die and reincarnate as a child so the character can take care of their child? This feels weird. Is this a fetish? Is this a thing? All was quiet for a while, and then Eridice made a scathing post on social media claiming I was targeting them. and I intentionally didn't give her character equal limelight like I did for the others, when again, they always played their character in a very reactionary way and never communicated with me how they wanted the story to end. And instead of me trying to change a post-ending that they could create their own epilogues was a lazy hand wave. A lazy hand wave. Paradise is saying this was targeting harassment or targeting a player because the DM didn't know how to end the story because Paradise never gave the DM anything about their character. I bet you Paradise didn't write the backstory, so the DM had nothing to work with in the slightest. Of course, the DM was not going to know what to do for the ending because if they don't know what the character is all about, they don't know how to end it. They don't know what kind of ending they would want. If the DM asks you for something and you don't communicate it back to the DM, how the hell is the DM supposed to know exactly what you want? This is not targeting harassment in the slightest or targeting a player. I feel like this was the same reason why it didn't work out with Iridice's last group. Because of Iridice. Iridice here is the fucking problem. And for the DM to say you can choose your own epilogue because I didn't feel like I did your character justice, for them to call that lazy, they don't know what to give you, Iridice. You don't communicate anything. How is that lazy? You're the lazy fuck that's not giving the DM anything to work with. My tiefling blood is boiling. Iridice, why are you doing this? A few weeks go by and I was suddenly blocked by Salisbury. Later found out by my ex that Salisbury and Iridice had an argument about how the story of the campaign ended. So they were presented with an ultimatum. It was either Iridice or me by Iridice. They chose Iridice and now treat me in a Discord server like I don't exist. Both players are still on my Discord server, but I don't speak to them unless spoken to. And they treat me as ghosts, so I do the same. End of story. Apologies for the formatting, because this is my first time posting, and it's a little hard to recount slights and resentments that go back years ago. Although the conflict is minor, I just wanted to let my feelings out in this one, so the pain does not fester. Granted, it's hard not to resent when somebody's trying to isolate you from your friend group and paints you as an ungodly monster. If Iridice really doesn't want to have any connection or communication with you, and Salisbury the same, kick him from the server. Simple as that. What's the point of having a server where you want to play with friends and do stuff with friends if those two are just going to be like ghosts that just pretend like you don't exist and you do the same? Kick him from the server, kick him to the curb, and just fill the server with friends, actual friends that want to do stuff with you. Don't just have these guys just hang out there for no reason. What's the point of being there on a server if they're not going to even interact with you? I get it's unfair that they slighted you, but like, what's the point of them being on a server? They just pretend like each other don't exist. There's no point at all in the slightest. If it's your server and you're running the server and it's a server full of your friends and people that you know, clearly it's not going to be Iridice and Salisbury. Remove them. Kick him out. Don't deal with them whatsoever. If Salisbury decides to want to communicate after this, sure, that's completely fine. That's up to you to decide on that sort of thing. But otherwise, I just wouldn't bother and just would cut him out of your life and remove him out of your life and just not worry about this whatsoever. And with that, that's going to be all our stories for today. I want to thank you very much for watching and thanks so much for being here. If you like what I do, consider subscribing to the channel and leaving a like. Also, if the RPG Horror Stories ever goes down or if you want to submit your own personalized horror story, email is down in the description below. I'll see you again in more Tales Tomorrow. Bye-bye.